Don't come in showing me them teeth. I was like, I'm gonna talk about him bad. I'm gonna talk about him real bad. Like I had literally just said, it better be like something in real life that's happening, and not just like, oh, you meant 8 o'clock your time.
No, we're in the same time zone,
I'm
but like I hate being late for anything. So, yeah, it was my son. He called, so I
that's
apologize.
okay. No apology needed. I mean, it's the kids, it's the babies. Like, what are you gonna do? I try and ignore mine, but that don't work sometimes. But no, I appreciate you making time for me. I will say this much: you have made yourself available. Like you pretty much put it out there. Like, hey, whenever you're ready, I'm ready to go. So you were almost honest. Almost. You. So those who are joining in, of course, I know who Haize is. Just from. So let me go ahead and put it on record. I met him online. I met him through Twitter. There was an incident. And so I started paying attention to him at that point, and I think that's when we kind of connected. And I started paying attention on Instagram, and I was like, oh, I kind of like his vibe. And you definitely have strong opinions about stuff, and that's something that resonates with me, because I would rather people, actually have an opinion about something, even if it doesn't line up with what it is that I believe. Like, believe what you believe and stick to it and go forth, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I appreciate about you. But for the people who don't know who you are, here is your moment to go ahead and give people a brief rundown about who you are, what your many talents are, and where they can find you in the event that, they have to jump off real quick. Let everybody know who you are. What's up?
So yeah, I'm Haize, aka Cordero. I'm a podcaster, a photographer, now a filmmaker, and I host the Awaken Soul podcast, co-host on the Breaks Radio, and I also am a co-host on the Film Frequency. So I do a lot. I'm always busy. Yeah, and if you guys want to follow me, you can check me out. I'm at CEO Haize everywhere. That's CEOHAIZE.
And he is more so popping on Twitter than what he is on Instagram. I will say that much. But I mean, it's entertainment for sure. So if you want if you want something that's either gonna get you real mad or have you feeling frisky in your undercarriage or anything in between, go follow his account. But the reason I felt like you were the right person for me to have this conversation with is because how I kind of came into meeting you, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a situation where there's this whole, I'm an alpha, and presenting that to everyone as being this dominant personality and an alpha male, takes no apologies, takes no prisoners, does what they want, and everybody just kind of has to fall in line with it.
Mm-hmm.
And needless to say, that didn't necessarily rock too well with me. So before we go into it, what do you consider to be an alpha male? Like, what is your definition of an alpha male?
Alpha male generally is somebody who's a natural leader. Sometimes let that goes to their head though, as well as is very confident. Sometimes dominating, even if they don't necessarily mean it, is generally what an alpha male is. I think now the ideal people who want to present as alphas take those traits and make them very toxic, and so that's what we have. That's where we have to start differentiating people between people who want to be seen as alphas and people who are naturally actual alphas. So
yeah, okay. So I guess I would agree with you because and I know there's probably going to be some people who listen to this that are going to want to shoot me to say, oh, a woman can't be. But as the opposite gender, as a female, I consider myself to be an alpha in the settings that I'm in. I'm the one that kind of has the bigger presence. I'm the one that'll make the decisions, and we go and do this. This is how we function. I'm kind of the point person for a lot of stuff just because of my personality, and it's not because I have to work at being that way. I've just always been that way, even whenever I was younger. So I feel like in the same thing, an alpha personality, an alpha male, alpha female, whatever, is just a leader. They're just naturally that way. They don't have to command that position of authority. it just happens. So when you talk about these like alpha males and I'll even go and just put alpha personalities and the toxicity of it, I definitely feel like there's at minimum a tinge of insecurities in who you are as a man or who you are as a woman whenever you have to take that position of leadership and force people to allow you to lead and force people to respect you or respect your position. Whenever you say that it becomes toxic, what do you see about the alpha male personality or alpha female, if you want to talk about that? I would rather focus on the men because that's just me. What would you say you find to be like toxic about these alpha males?
So it's people who feel like to be an alpha, it means demeaning the people around you, right? Because like you said, a true alpha, their place is kind of like they never feel challenged by it because they just kind of naturally fall into that. Them and sigma males, which people forget about sigma males, but as far as like where it gets toxic is that when you feel like the only way that you can lead is by subjugating other people, because that's not what an alpha is. An alpha is a natural leader of the people who they're put in charge of. And so when you feel like you have to either demean, degrade, or whatever, that is what makes it get toxic, in my opinion.
Again, I agree. One of the things that I notice about a lot of these alpha males is whenever they reference women, the statement is that, a woman can't do this, a woman shouldn't do that. For example, one of the arguments is that a woman's place is to be in the home with children. A woman can't possibly be effective in her role as a mother, as a wife, if she's out worrying about getting an education, if she's out focusing on work. There's no way that she can give 100% at home if she's giving part of herself to a career or, a profession, a job, school, whatever. And I object to that because I consider myself to be a pretty dope ass mom. But you're telling me that I'm, the only way for me to be my best version of being a mom is if I give up all of the things that make me as the individual who I am, that allows to pour into my children to say, this is who my mom is. Like, my identity should not be defined by the man that's in my life. And I feel like a lot of these alpha males, that's almost, for me, that's what I feel like. It's almost like what they need to happen is for the woman to kind of vanish into the shadows and to just be a servant. And I'm talking about these toxic alpha males.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, the toxic alpha males, their views on women will expose them very, very early on. Like what you said, a lot of people do have that mindset of, a woman isn't doing her roles. I was even in a conversation on Twitter a couple of months ago where somebody said a woman, if she has degrees, there's no way that she can fulfill her role as a wife or mother. And it's like, that's some of the most idiotic stuff that I could possibly hear. And it goes back to feeling like a toxic alpha male feels like their position is secured if nobody's doing as good as them. And that's not what true alpha males do. And so once you start seeing that and that mindset starts being exposed, especially if it's projected upon women, that right there exposes a fraud alpha right away.
And the you talk about the sigma males, but everybody likes to go from alpha to betas. Oh, those are betas. Those are betas. So let's briefly talk about the sigma and the beta males, because I feel like those also play into why these toxic alpha males present themselves the way that they do.
Yeah, so the sigma males in a lot of ways are right at the same level as alpha males. The difference between sigma and alpha males are that sigma males have a lot of they get the attention of an alpha male without ever seeking it, meaning that they find themselves in leadership positions, but they don't need it. They don't need to be celebrated. They don't need the attention. Very often they'll rather not get it, but they find themselves often thrust into these leadership roles, and they also live outside of the normal social structure. So they in their minds, they don't even see it as like a hierarchy because they're fine just doing them. Now they can be leaders, they can be put in leadership positions, but it's it's the way that they look at it is, I'm going to do me. If you want to roll, that's fine. That's not an issue at all. But if you don't want to roll, I'm still going to do me. That's what Sigma males do. And people forget that Sigma males, in a lot of ways, they have a lot of the traits of alpha males without some of the negativity, because they don't need the attention and to be in leadership positions. So
yeah, and on the other hand, you have these beta males that are spoken of, and I'm trying to catch myself, but yes, y'all are seeing me like trying to mince my words, because I'm trying to make sure that I'm explaining it the right way. I feel like as beta males, if everybody has a position, right? Everybody has a position that they exist in society, in their lives. And if you are a passive man, if you are a man who desires to be, subservient to a woman or anybody else, that's your right. Now, am I attracted to that? Is that something that I find, endearing about a man, or, any male characteristics that I would put on a list? No, not at all. However, I know plenty of women who that's the type of man that they want. They want that guy who will just kind of, let them do as they want, and they will wait on her hand and foot, in essence, right? So when I hear these toxic alpha males, and I'm going to go ahead and start to speak on it that way. When I hear these toxic alpha males talk about, he's a beta. Okay, well, why are you worried about a beta? If you are like, I'm not worried about somebody that really doesn't impact my life. She has no effect on me, what I am, or how she lives her life. Stay-at-home mom, girl, go ahead, do you. That's not me. I'm not going to consider you less of an ambitious woman because you decided that with the choices that you have for yourself, you decided to stay home. That's your right. Just like I consider it to be my right to be able to do whatever it is that I want to do as a woman, and whatever the dynamics of whatever relationship I'm in would be open up to. So these alpha males who have basically almost, like I said, because that ties into this whole this dating advice that we're getting. A lot of these toxic alpha males have started to believe that, or started to impress upon other men, that if a woman seeks her own brand of success, she's not good quality as a partner. If she's out trying to get a degree, like you said, if she's getting a degree, she's not worthy of being a good a wife to you, a woman to you, the mother of your children. She's going to be problematic. So then on the other side, you have the other men, the other advisors who are trying to encourage women to believe that, no, a man should let you do whatever it is that you want to do. So you have these polar opposites in the dating advice world or relationship world. And I feel like it's actually doing a disservice to us.
Absolutely. And the thing I always say is that, like, even before the Derek Jackson was exposed thing, if somebody is giving you advice out of their car, don't listen to them. Just at a baseline.
Y'all know we're having a conversation outside of my bedroom. He has a whole nice setup. I'm in my bedroom, so I think that should count for something. At least I'm in my home.
Exactly. And then on the flip side of that, let's talk about like somebody like Steve Harvey. When he came out with Think Like a Man, Steve Harvey had 2 failed marriages. What place does he have? Like, all he did was write a book to the things that women were already thinking. That's predatory in a way too. That people think of predatory nature just being like this negative thing. There's a such thing as being a positive predator, meaning that you reaffirm just what somebody's positive thinking is, and you're being a predator. Yeah, and they feel like you're hearing them out. Derek Jackson was like that too. Like, basically, men like Derek Jackson are the men who say, your man isn't doing good enough for you. Let me cheat on my wife with you to show you what a real man would do. And it's like, what sense does that make? And you people fell for this for months, years at this point.
Well, let's go on record. Anytime anyone is what I consider to be an extremist, I don't buy into it, because and maybe that's the Libra in me. I tend to kind of, want to see the middle ground for everything, right? I want things to be balanced out, and you can't be all on one side or the other. There has to be there has to be balance. And when Derek Jackson is, like you said, sitting in his vehicle, probably leaving from cheating on his own girlfriend and advising people, I couldn't subscribe to it, because I'm like, okay, you're basically saying that most of these men are trash. You're saying that these men don't have any cause for how they behave and act like women are totally right in everything. And in that same vein, oh, you know what? Before we go on, let me go ahead and catch you. So just because people have had failed marriages, that does not mean that we don't give great advice.
True.
I give amazing advice, and I had 3 failed marriages.
Yeah. No, and there isn't, like, because you learn that hopefully people learn from their failure and they're able to give great advice based off their failure. But I specifically why I bring that up with Steve Harvey is because, like, even when you look at the, like, how Steve Harvey conducted himself within his marriages, come on, bro,
Well, we could say the same thing about the other Godfather that's out there right now.
True.
I mean, we can say his name if we want. I'm not really name dropping anybody, but because I don't want it to be about that. But I'm sure people can figure out who we're talking about. The same thing. That's giving a lot of these men who are not stepping up, not doing what they need to do, giving them passage, saying, "See, look at what the Godfather said. He said, you know, y'all out here messing up, so it's on y'all." And it's like, no, everybody does not have the introspective mentality to receive the words that these people are saying. I can listen to this man, and as much as I abhor how he presents himself, how he sends the message out, there is some truth in his message. But I feel like I can look at myself and recognize where, you know what, Tasha, you do need to be a little bit softer. Don't be so, like, aggressive and assertive. And I don't know why I think I've just always been that way. But it is something that I realized, like, you know what? If I'm looking for a guy who is going to be, you know, ahead of me, because I am the one who wants that traditional type of situation. But if I'm looking for somebody to give me that, then I have to make sure that I leave space for him, right? And if I'm walking around with my broad shoulders, handling everything, then I'm not making space for him. But that's because I am very introspective about things. A lot of these people, if you look into the comments and then you go look on these people's pages, sir, you are not a high value man. I assure you, you are not. And it's not about how much money you're making, because I'm one of those, I don't care how much money you're making. I can take care of myself.
Yeah.
But so you, like I said, you have them coming at all different directions. Everybody pretty much making excuses. And as you said, being that positive predator to encourage people in their own BS and in their own foolishness. And I don't know how we get out of that, aside from having real conversations about what dating and relationships actually look like, and not, you know, sitting across the hall pointing fingers at each other.
Exactly.
Saying, well, this is what's wrong with men. This is what's wrong with women.
Yeah. And we don't have a lot of those open, like, it becomes about measuring pain when men and women talk about relationships. Well, we have it worse because you guys do this. Well, we have it worse because you guys actually do that. And it stops being to hear, right? Because at the end of the day, when you get into measuring hurt, all you're both sitting there doing is holding your heart and being hurt. Whereas if you can listen to it and not project and not say, okay, yeah, I do that, but you do, and just take it in and say, okay, if this is what the men you've experienced have done to you, all right, let me take that in and make sure that I don't put you in that same place, and vice versa. But we get so caught up in wanting to measure who has it worse that we just still have it bad as a people. And especially when you break that down even further to Black couples, we have so much generational trauma in our DNA alone that when we start bringing in the normal relationship stuff, like we get so bogged down by all of it that nobody's really improving anything.
Well, and because I think a lot of us, aside from the fact that we haven't necessarily addressed the trauma and dealt with the trauma, right? Yeah. We don't know what loving relationships look like. A lot of us don't, and it's not to say that they don't exist, because there's quite a few pages out there that try to encourage it, and try to show these relationships. And I'm not talking about these brand new, like, oh, they just got married, that wedding is cute. I'm talking about, the people who have stuck it out, for 30 and 40 years and weathered the storms in a healthy fashion. But a lot of us don't know what healthy relationships look like. I saw someone had posted, and she was saying how she had been in such, just growing up, all of the relationships, parental relationships, her romantic relationships had always been so toxic that whenever she actually got into a healthy relationship, when she got with a healthy man, she was the toxicity. Mm-hmm. Because she had never addressed the things that had impacted her, addressed the things that are just, genetically within us, to where she knew how to purposefully interact with this man who was healthy, who was whole. And she almost destroyed their relationship. Fortunately, this man actually had patience with her. And while they were dating, they were going through counseling. And, they talked their way through it or whatever. But I don't know, I don't know how we combat these extreme relationship experts, because none of them, the Godfather, he has at least one failed marriage. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Steve Harvey. He had failed marriages. Derek Jackson, that was a whole scandal, that just happened. So what is it that we do within our own sphere of influence to try and take the value of what these individuals are saying? Because there is, I will say, I think even with Derek Jackson, there was some value in some of what he was saying, right?
Yeah.
There's value in what all of them are saying, but how do we get to a place to where we can recognize what the valuable information is, and where a lot of what they're doing is sensationalized to get clicks and likes?
Well, yeah, and the Godfather, because if we're not mentioning his name, a lot of because you said it, like there are some things that he says in there that are very valid, but his promotion is built around like to be appeared as he just tears everybody down, and I think
he tears women down. Stop it.
Women, you're women, because it's not men. And he does go at men sometimes, but it's never in the promotion. But I think what is the transparency? These people, I have a failed marriage. If people were really truly trying to help the relationships, let's talk. Let's be transparent about why our marriages failed. I on my podcast, for example, said a part, not 100%, but a part of the reason my marriage failed is because I wasn't at a place of emotional intelligence to emotionally support my ex-wife. Mm-hmm. She was left to be emotionally dealt with that on her own, and I tried to be a silo and deal with it on my own, and we started bumping heads. Now that I'm more of an emotionally intelligent person, in my next marriage, I am more than equipped to emotionally support you. That doesn't mean we're not going to have other issues, but if we're really trying to help and help people learn from our mistakes, we have to stop trying to present as we have it all together, and let's talk about what we learned. Let's be transparent about the mistakes that we ourselves made in our marriage, not the other people, because we can't talk for their voice. Let's talk about what we did that made it fail, and then hopefully somebody can learn from that story.
I agree with that 100%. I think that is one of the huge downfalls of social media is, like, yes, there's visibility into everything, but people are very tailored in what they want people to see. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of people feeling like, my marriage is trash simply because they had an argument over finances, not realizing that this is something that everybody goes through. Every marriage is out there, they're fussing about something, right? They're finding something that they'll disagree with. It's two human beings trying to join, trying to function in one life together, right? So yes, there's going to be some friction at times, but that transparency is not there, especially from those that are out there giving advice, because you had, Steve, who was just all caught up in, hey, look at my new relationship and everything is wonderful and great. And lo and behold, somebody else just said it, you sitting there giving out this kind of advice, but your daughter ain't even applying that advice. So if your daughter's not listening to that advice, why should we listen to that advice? Tell us what made you come to that place to where you feel like these are the keys that to, a woman thinking like a man is actually what's going to make a relationship solid and whole, right?
Yeah.
And Derek Jackson, sir, you obviously got all sorts of demons going on, because you're talking about being a God-fearing man and you sliding up in DMs worse than anybody else. But you're not telling people about these issues that you're having that in your own relationship that are making you feel like, and I'm not saying that it's her fault. I'm saying like something about him, he was feeling a certain way that made him feel like, oh, well, this is okay for me right now. Was it simply that you are selfish? Was it that, you felt obligated to be in this relationship with this woman because you had been with her for so long? Like, be honest about something, because these are very real issues, obviously. And odds are there's somebody else out there who's dealing with the same thing, and not this whole point the finger at men because men are wrong. Point the finger at women because women are wrong, because now nobody's getting fixed. Nobody's getting better.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think it all boils down to, like, for example, in Derek Jackson's situation, and he doesn't have that demon seemingly under control, but had he did, why, instead of just talking about this place of positively preying on women's ideas and thoughts, why not talk to the men and say, look, I'm dealing with the temptation demon. This is what I'm dealing with currently. Let's, like, these people who sit and try to present as like, and that's the issue I have overall with like things, is like we try to present as these perfect people and then we miss the story because we want to seem perfect. No, the flaws is where the magic is. When you can admit and talk about the flaws, that's where the growth is. Trying to present as you perfect and you have it all together, there's no growth in that. You can give somebody the hope that they can ascend to that, but without a story and the journey of how you got there, it's all meaningless.
That's something that I will hold on to probably until the day I die, is that everybody has a story. Don't be afraid to tell your story, because somebody needs to hear it. Somebody needs to hear your story so they, A, don't feel like they're so alone in whatever it is that they're going through, and B, there's probably a way out of it by you telling them your story. And you might not even be out of it, but y'all might put your heads together and come up with some sort of resolution in, okay, this is how we as men move forward. This is how we as women move forward. But instead, everybody is, like I said, everybody is blaming everybody. And it frustrates me so much, because I feel like we are literally, somebody said that there's like 6.5 million followers on Derek Jackson's page. But y'all are all following him. But what is it that y'all are actually taking from him and going to the streets with? To do better? Because you can't tell me that you're hanging on every word that he says, because obviously every word that he says doesn't work, because if it did work, that's what he would be doing, and his marriage would be perfect, right? His relationship would be on the up and up, but it's not. So why are we following these people? Are we challenging them whenever they put these things out that really don't make sense? And are we, as the opposite gender, being supportive of one another? Because what I've noticed in the comment section, whenever people try to come back or debunk whatever it is that the other individual is saying, you can come with facts. They still don't want it, because people still seem to need a space to underperform. People still need a space to make excuses for not rising to the occasion of what they should be doing as a woman or as a man out in today's society, let alone in romantic relationships.
Definitely. And I think to double down on that, it's people will blame God, the devil, the taxi driver, everything, instead of addressing their own lack of integrity.
Yes.
And so, like, if you don't address your own lack of integrity and think that the devil's not sitting around waiting for you to lie, cheat, and steal from somebody who's a business partner or relate, like, it's not. Let's just be real.
But some people believe that. Some people believe that is, he is a lion in wait, just sitting there waiting for, whom he may devour by them going out and committing all their sins. But I feel like that's a scapegoat.
Yeah, it does. Religion becomes a scapegoat, and that's why people like Derek Jackson, I only take the religion aspect so far, because God did give us free will, and if you don't have the integrity to make the right decision when you're faced with the thing, you as the human are going to fail every single time, regardless if the devil set it up or whatnot. Your integrity is in question, and once you're not relying, or your integrity isn't strong enough to get you through those moments, you can't blame the devil. That's you.
Yeah, exactly. It's up to you. Like, if you know this is where you are lacking, if this is an issue of yours, or you have not arrived to that level of maturity to be faithful, it's on you to say, you know what, I'm not at that place yet.
Yeah.
I still want to, I still want to have a hot boy summer, a hot girl summer, and I don't want to have to answer to nobody. So go ahead and do that. But that's accountability, and people do not want to own their shit. That's, I don't know any other way to say it, but that's your mess. That's your stuff. Just own it. And instead of, like you said, especially whenever it comes to those people of faith, they're quick to say, not only it wasn't the devil, but why the other individual should forgive them and stick around.
Mm-hmm. It's blame shifting, and people don't realize. I don't think everyone does it intentionally, but even by like the public apologies, all that does is basically shift the onus and the blame onto the person who was actually victimized. Because now you're basically saying, I've apologized. I apologized publicly. I admitted what I did. It's up to you to forgive me or not. And it's like, no, hold up. Just because you said I'm sorry, if the actions to follow that apology aren't with it, that apology is just words. So like you have to look out for like people who do that. They will try to blame shift and put the pressure on you to forgive them just because I said the words I'm sorry. None of my actions have changed. But because I said I'm sorry, it's on you to forgive me.
Yeah, like I went on and I actually posted it in my story and on my page that I apologize for what I did. So let's move on. And if they don't want to move on, now the victim seems like the bitter one. The victim seems like the one who doesn't want to let go. And they have every right to. Like, yes, I'm a firm believer in, we should forgive. But that doesn't mean I can forgive you, but that does not mean I'm going to forget what you did. Yeah. And I would choose not to engage someone because, like you said, there's nothing that you have done that besides putting an apology out there that makes me feel like, oh, this, you've changed. You've gotten it together. You really are remorseful. That's a couple of words, but like put feet to action, put your feet to those words to make sure that whatever it is that we're going through is not something that we're going to repeat. Yeah. But we find that these, we can talk about religion. Like you see these pastors having to, apologize over and over to their congregations, to their spouses, because they're constantly getting caught up in some sort of sexual scandal or some extramarital situation. It might not be sexual, whatever. But there's just these words out there. But I think that goes back to what you were just talking about earlier, whenever it goes to the traumas that a lot of us have dealt with, have endured, that is within our DNA that we have not dealt with.
Yeah.
Everybody feels like, oh, I'm good to be in a relationship. I can be the first one to admit I don't think I really realized that I was in a space to be in a healthy relationship until I was 35. I had already been married 3 times at that point.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. 35 was when I really felt like I know who I am. I know what my flaws are. I know what my needs are. I know what my wants are, right? I had already been married 3 times and there's no wonder those marriages didn't last because I didn't even know myself. And there were so many things within me that I had to work through whenever I was spent like 7 years single that I had to work through, and I had to take that me time to learn myself. But a lot of us don't do stuff like that. And now we're just sitting here on the whims of all of these relationship experts telling us any and everything. And we hold on to those little things that all feed into, oh, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
It's them.
Yeah. And I think something that you touched on there is that we make it like we feel like we're missing out on something if we're not married by a certain age, this and that. Whereas like really it's a journey to get to know yourself. And that does happen at different ages for everyone. But like you haven't taken time to identify who you are. And then you try to identify who you are as a wife, as a husband, before you really have taken time to get to know you, your flaws. And like I said with my marriage before it failed, like I didn't take time out to get in touch with the way that I was raised, and I can't blame it on that because it was up to me as an adult to change it. But I didn't my emotional intelligence was at like a 0. Luckily, I've been able to work myself out. But like I had kids, got married and everything, and I still hadn't processed trauma that I went through as a kid. So now I'm bringing that into a marriage that we don't have a good foundation to even deal with our own stuff. And now I'm still in the process of working through my ish. And it's like, let yourself feel like you're missing out on something if you're not married by a certain age, because you may just not be willing to. It's a long game, right? People get married first 5, 8 years, maybe divorce. You get married later in life, and then you ride that out for another 30 or 40 years, like, because you've taken that time out to get to know yourself.
Yeah, and the other individual, that's one of the things that he talks about. He says, well, if you're not married by, and which is weird to me because it's coming from a man. He's saying that as a woman, if you haven't gotten married by, like say 30 or, like your early 30s, you're pretty much useless. Yeah. No good man is gonna want you because, you haven't, you're getting too old. But I would think that at that point, this is what you want. This is someone who is now at a place to where she is probably emotionally whole and ready and available to be in an actual relationship. These men, he's not even addressing this with these men that do better for yourself. So she said, I'm useless then. But it's the truth. It's we as a society, it's like we put this timeline. And that's why people have that timeline for themselves, because it's, well, everybody else, thinks that by the age of 25, I should have already gotten married. And here it is, I'm 26. And so now they start scrambling.
Yeah.
And I get it for us women. It's a biological thing, right? If we want a family, of course, we have to move a little bit quicker. But we need to start encouraging that part. Let's forget about the relationship stuff. Let's encourage just being whole on your own. Learn who you are. Be happy with who you are. Be in that space. And whenever you go to the table, you know exactly what you're presenting to that person. This is Tasha. This is Haize. This is who I am. And so now you know what you're getting. I know what you're getting. And we can see if we can rock that out for, like you said, for the next 30 years versus being in our 20s. And by the time you turn 28, you are a totally different person than what you were whenever you were 22.
Yeah. The way that I look at it is like this. Like, you have two people, right? And let's say those two people are halfway full of glasses. I'm using the analogy of those people being glasses. So we poured collectively into now our glass because we're connecting. We were two half people. We filled up a glass. People will think, okay, well, now we're full. But no, if you come into it with as full people, then even when you pour into that glass together, you have a reserve. Meaning that when some of that spills out or leaks out because of drama, stress, whatever, you now have a reserve built up that you can refill that cup up with. And so, like, you got to think about it that way. Stop, like, thinking that just because, like, you have to have a reserve. And if you come in it as incomplete people, it's going to deplete. And then, unfortunately, that you're going to start pulling it out of each other. And now somebody's drained. So.
Yeah, and whenever, like, again, I'm gonna keep talking about this stuff because this is, like I said, this is what I'm seeing, and I feel like this is evidence of what the dating world really does look like beyond just my own sphere of influence. But when you see people commenting and saying, well, hey, I would do this for my lady, but ... she, she hasn't taken care of this, or she's not doing that, and women basically saying the same thing about, hey, I have no problem submitting to a man, but, emotionally, he can't cover me, and it's you have the opposite sides arguing with each other saying, oh, well, that shouldn't matter. Yes, it does matter. Yeah. Because I think at the end of the day, everybody wants a healthy relationship, right? Everybody wants that person who fits, who genuinely adds to their life. And we're all struggling to try and find out what that looks like. And someone else, mentioned it in the comments. Love looks different for everybody. Yeah. Love and action looks different for everybody. And we just have to find where our match is. Instead of everybody saying that, well, all women need to do X, Y, and Z. And every man needs to be an alpha male, or else your home will fall apart and you are not worthy of a woman. It looks different, and you just have to find out who you are as a person and come to the table. Like I said, come to the table with who you are as a whole person, right? Just like
Yeah.
you were talking about, both of you coming as whole people, and now y'all get to go ahead and pair up and be at a full place of life, not just in a constant, well, I'm wore out, you got to pour into me. Oh, wait, it's your turn now. So now y'all are just, uh, speaking from a money space, y'all living from check to check in love.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the
So
submission thing, the submission conversations, I'm like, this is my thought on the whole submission thing. If a man is telling you how much a woman should submit, remind him that it says in the Bible, since he's using the Bible, that a woman is supposed to submit to a man as the man submits to God. And if you're dealing with somebody who is morally corrupt, you don't need to submit to that motherfucker. Like, make him earn your submission, and not by necessarily begging for it, but by how he lives his life, how he conducts himself. His moral character will tell you if it's somebody that's worthy of your submission. If they're not, and there are a lot of people who sit there and they're still getting over hurt, broken hearts, because they submitted to the wrong person, knowing that person was morally corrupt. But you just, potential is a motherfucker, right? Potential will have you thinking everything else, and it's potential is just that. It's unrealized. If they're not realizing the potential, you are not beholden to do anything because of that.
Exact. Yeah, and what's so funny about that that word submission, I would consider a lot of the women in my circle to be extremely strong women, right? But you have a lot of men who feel like women like us don't want to be submissive. What? I'll tell anybody, there is rest in submission, right? Mm-hmm. If I get to go to work and then come home and kick back and you making all decisions for me, you're basically guiding my life. I look forward to that. But guess what I'm not about to do? I'm not about to give you the reins if I can't trust that when you make those decisions, you have our best interests at heart, right? Yeah. That you have my mental well-being at heart, my emotions at heart. Because I know if I'm going to make decisions, I'm going to be thinking about you. But if I have to take a back seat and pretty much, follow you blindly, then I need to know that your character is in place to where I'm not going to suffer for it. And it's a lot of my homegirls that are in the exact same way. Get a man that is going to look out for them. They will easily say, you know what? Here you go. Here's everything. Let me know what color you want me to wear tonight. I got you.
There's power in submission, right? In the fact of knowing that that person has you, like they got you. Yep. But people, like some men, just want that submission thing without earning it or making their woman feel safe. And it's like, what is she submitting to? Hope? Like, what sense does that make?
Hope will have you hurt.
Exactly.
Hope will have you hurt.
And it's like some men think this like submission thing is like automatic. I get with you because I showed interest in you, because I said that I want to be with you, because I like you're doing a favor. I made you my wife. Submit. Nigga, you gotta earn that. You feel me? Like at the end of the day, and that should not be a problem. If your heart and mind and intent is in the right place, somebody telling you have to earn something for them, it should just be, oh, I got this.
Oh, I got that. I got that.
There ain't nothing.
If this is who you are, if this is genuinely like who you are and how you live, that's gonna be nothing for you to be able to go ahead and make that happen. It's not if just like we were talking about it earlier, a true alpha male does not care about what's going on around him, right? Because I am what I am. Like who is around me doesn't make me an alpha. I am an alpha in my own right. That just comes naturally. So if you are a man who a woman should submit to, getting her to submit to you won't be work. Yeah. It won't be work because you will live every day out. And I'll reference there was a guy that I dated a while back, and I'll say I was like, oh, this is awesome because he did everything. So it made it easy for me to kind of fall back a little bit and not be, my broad shouldered, I got this up in the front of everything type posture, because he was literally taking care of everything. So I didn't he didn't even leave space for me to feel like I needed to step up. That just came naturally to him. I mean, there was some other issues. That's why we ain't together. But but what I am saying is that I know it is possible. And a lot of these men need to get that mess out of their heads. A lot of these women need to get this mess out of their head, that simply because you are born with, you know, as a certain sex, that entitles you to a certain position. No, your character is what entitles you to that position.
Absolutely.
Who are you?
Absolutely.
And if you're not going to cover me, there's no need for me to submit to you, because I know I got me.
Exactly.
And until you show me that you got me like I got me, I might as well go ahead and keep getting me.
Exactly. And keep in mind, submission does not mean silence. Some men will have you thinking that by submitting, it means you don't have a voice. And if they tell you or make you feel like you don't have a voice because you're supposed to be submitting, that lets you know right there that their moral character is off.
Red flags.
Submitting just means, all right,
uh-oh, your audio.
That I'm gonna trust the decisions that you're gonna make. But if I see you're going left or going astray, you better damn well tell me, even if you're my woman submitting to me like, hey babe, I know you wanted to go left, but I don't think you see that there's a boulder over there. So what we gonna do? No, you're still, and that's the thing. Even in submission, what's another word that spouses are called in the Bible? Since submission is still rooted in the Bible, helpmate, meaning help me. So like, if somebody tells you through submission you're supposed to be silent, they're not telling you right.
And that's that insecurity. That's that insecurity of not necessarily knowing, you know, and being totally certain of who you are and what you are, to where if someone else comes and gives you some extra advice or a different direction, now you feel threatened. That shouldn't threaten you. That should help you recognize, like, oh, I got me somebody that's really rocking with me, and making sure that we're both covered in all of this, and not just like you said, just let me go down the path all on my own. But this is the type of advice that people need. Like, this is the stuff that people need to hear, men and women, and not this one-sided bullshit from these experts who are placing the blame on everybody. We all got some stuff that we got to get right. We all need to rethink how we view relationships, because the reality is yes, maybe at the core of things, you know, a relationship is the same, but the society that we have to function in these relationships today are not what our, you know, old aunties and grandparents and stuff. Like, society is different. So relationships, though love is still, you know, love is love, that love is different. So now we have this society that we have to function in, and people show that differently. They express it differently. They walk it out differently. And these relationships are all going to look different. So find the relationships that make sense to you. But if you're going to finding those relationships that make sense to you, you need some real guidance, not this stuff that people are telling you that allow you to stay in that space of wrongness and error on your own part. And probably, I'll be honest, I look at it and I'm like, there's so many people up here, I don't care how handsome he is, how good she looks, they are following this advice and they are hindering themselves from finding healthy and whole relationships, because now they're like, see, I'm not the problem.
Yeah,
it's them. So they're just going to stay in that place and continue to spin their wheels. And unfortunately, you know, it's going to take, you know, the little man like, you know, me and you having these conversations where people say, you know what? Okay, maybe I do need to fix some things about myself. And maybe, you know, there is some quality about this man. There are some qualities about this woman. And let me just go ahead and give it a chance and not be on this cookie cutter. Oh, she's 35. She ain't no good. Oh, she owns a dog. She's for the streets. You know, like whatever this mentality is that's destroying these relationships, we really got to get it right. We got to stop looking at the extremists and start having some real conversations with real people who have been in real relationships and made real mistakes, and willing to be real about those mistakes. So
definitely,
I appreciate you coming on. Now I want, of course, there's some people who came on and who are just going to be able to find out who you are, but let them know where they can reach you, what platforms you're on, what podcasts you're on, so they can go ahead and start following.
All right, so you can follow me at CEO Haize, at CEO Haize. That's across every social media platform that I want you guys to follow me at. And then you can follow my podcast, The Awakened Soul Podcast. I'm on every major podcasting platform as well as YouTube if you want to see the video.
Okay, again, thank you for being open to doing this. I assure you it's not
Anytime.
going to be the last time. And next time, tell your son he needs to wait for his phone call.
Yes, ma'am.
Nah, thank you so much, Haize. I appreciate you. Y'all have a good night.
Alrighty, you too.
All right, bye.